Hello, everybody. Long time no see. I know this is a bit late for a Christmas custom and all that mess, which is probably the first time I've ever said that or done that. But if you don't know me, my name is Dark. I'm feeling a bit chaotic, and today we are going to be looking at another custom. And I'm sure this one will be very familiar to you given what it is today. That's right. It's golden. Now, if you don't know, last Christmas, well, a couple Christmases ago, I think, I don't remember, I haven't checked, but I used Gordon, an old model of him, in a Christmas message type thing with another character. And recently I redid it, so, his model, so I decided, hey, why not, do the same thing again, but this time as a review. So here he is, in front at the head of the Wild Nor'Wester, the express he pulls on the daily in the show and in the books. You can see it's 6 cars long. So let's pull him off for a minute. Forcefully kick him off and let's take a closer look. So now you may immediately notice what's up with him. Now the first notable thing that differs him from normal Gordons, the tender, which is still in Great Northern Railway 8-axle shape. Wasn't swapped out for a Fowler tender because I feel like it makes more sense for him to keep the 8-axle tender because it's got more capacity for coal and water compared to the Fowler tender, which has like 3,500 gallons, I believe. But anyway, the second major difference is that he's still in his A1, A3-esque shape. No one notch up, one flat, and then one notch down type stuff. It's more of a curvy shape like Flying Scotsman or his other brothers, which is kind of what I was going for in this. And the other notable changes are, of course, his dome is now more boxy, rectangular, and he has smoke deflectors of the German style. The reason for this is that I feel like instead of being rebuilt to LMS design, he would be later rebuilt like after World War II and in like the 50s-ish to an A3, proper A3-esque shape. Like they'd start like rebuilding him because like in terms of how he'd get this shape, he'd get into an accident like Henry, but it was more of a wartime accident that like in a way destroyed his front end. So they would rebuild him a couple years later in the late 50s, and they would build him like his brothers. So he'd be more close to the A3, which is what you see here. He shares features that could be seen on 60052 and I believe 60097, but I believe that one, Humorist, I believe it's named, has different smoke deflectors, but still has the GNR tender. Most late A3s were given those, aside from a few which kept the high-sided tenders, or I haven't checked, but maybe one actually kept like a quarter tender. I haven't checked at all on that. But yeah, of course, here he is in that sort of fashion. And he's probably one of the ones that kicked off the hyper detailedness of like my models, aside from like Henry, like in terms of like TTE stuff. Because my American models won't have this much detail for it'd probably clutter them up worse. But like with these engines, it looks better. Like you can immediately see the differences from old to new models because like his cab is more the section under his cabin firebox is actually proper. It's not like squished firebox. It's actually properly proportioned firebox. His boiler shares the taper down from the cab and flat on the smoke box area. And of course you got the valve gear down there. And notable livery changes is the black wheels, black cylinders. But other than that, he's basically bog standard Gordon. Oh, and one extra thing. As I'm sure you know, in roughly 2016, the Great Race came out, and he was in Shooting Star-esque colors. And I do plan for a Shooting Star-esque thing to pop up. Gordon won't be the Shooting Star in this use. Shooting Star will be a different locomotive entirely. But Gordon here has parts of that livery at the bottom because if you look, I can kind of see through the camera now. If you look, he has a darker blue on the bottom trim of his cabin tender, kind of hinting at that similar commonality between Streamlined Gordon and this Gordon. But yeah, other than that, he's pretty much bog standard. Anyway, let's pull up some size comparisons from some other models. Now, the first one will be something decently proportioned, like Hank, who we'll be covering later, but here he is next to Hank. Take him away. And then here's him next to an engine like Charlie, which is basically tiny compared to him. Which was kind of good, because like in real life, the Manning Wardles would be tinier than Gordon. I guess that's somewhat accurate. I have no way of really checking that much, but I know for a fact that compared to an A3, Manning Wardle will be a midget. And now, I guess, we'll take it a notch up. Here he is side by side with his express buddy, Rebecca. Bullied Pacific next to Gresley Pacific. And Rebecca will also be covered along with the rest of them at a later date. Yeah, pull her to the side again. And I guess for the last one comparison, we'll show him next to Murdoch. Now, bear with me here because it's not exactly the easiest thing to build a 9F. Because unlike most of the standard range, they have that big gap between the wheels and the frames. And the upper chassis, and it's kind of a pain to get that quite right. I might have to rework his boiler later on, but here he is next to Murdoch at the 9F, and you can already see proportions are not the best here, because I believe the 9Fs had a slightly taller boiler than the Gresley A3s. They were the same rough length, same similar proportions in terms of length, but in terms of height, they outmatch him by a couple of meters, inches, one of the two. I don't know measurements, nor do you. But yeah, that should be it for that. So yeah, this is Gordon in his new shape for 2021. And here we'll get a quick look at him on the head of the Wild Nor'Wester. And you can see, it looks kind of decent, because, well, for one, the tender flows with the train. It's not with this TV series tender and railway series tender, it's if our tender doesn't look too good in the position of, this, behind the Gresley and in front of, Southern Railway coaches, it's kind of, odd. It doesn't flow that much. But then, with this tender for Gordon as, a proper A3 tender, it looks like it flows. Like how Scotsman would look on a rail tour. Speaking of that, Scotsman will be coming, but let's also take a quick side note and look at the Wild Nor'Wester contest. Now, let's take a look at the Wild Nor'Wester. Now, in the TV series, there's no, it's just coaches, a set of coaches and a brake coach at the back. But what I've done here is instead of that, it's a whole rake of Southern Railway Monsell coaches. I believe that's what I based them off of. Southern Railway Monsells. Which is what they are also based off in the wiki, but hey. But at the head, there is what is essentially meant to mimic one of the parcel vans, the bogie parcel van used on some boat trains on the Southern Railway. Painted in, the green livery of the coaches. Then you have two standard coach carriages. I gotta be UK. I've got to be British here. Then you've got the cafe car, which should be called a buffet car, but, logic. I'm American, I call it in American terms for simplicity, but I'll change that later if need be. Then you've got another coach, and then you've got oh, God. Then you've got the brake coach at the back. Now, a problem is, I kind of forgot that on each side, the Monsell coaches would be different. On one side, it's big windows, the other side is smaller windows. So both sides mimic. But I'll roll with it because I feel like it makes a big split between what would be the express coaches and suburban coaches, which I'm planning on building next. Well, later down the line because I've got more express rakes to make. But this is the Wild Nor'Wester, and this is Golden. But anyway, I hope y'all have had a nice holiday, like I have. And I'll probably see y'all on the next one when we cover another engine of my choosing. So, y'all take care. This has been Dark Chaotix, and it's time to light off.